Oh, yeah. We're not. Hey, the sheriff got Yeah, I actually, with Jim Berner. Oh, we go a couple weeks ago. They all come over here.
I think we're gonna
Time in 7 o'clock, I'd like to call the council meeting of the town of Copper Canyon, Monday, July 10th to order. If you'd all please stand, face the flag, and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Next item is public input. Anyone who would like to speak on an agenda or non-agenda item may do so at this time. Your allotted 3 minutes. We do have a public hearing tonight. It's continued, so if you would want to wait to the public hearing, that's fine. I think everyone I see here, anybody that's on here want to speak on the public input? Jeff Dahl?
I had one that was non-related.
Okay.
It'll be brief, I promise.
And then you also want to speak at the public hearing or?
Oh, no, that
No,
was
sorry.
for the, yeah.
Okay.
No.
You got it.
First of all, happy New Year. So I just want to briefly get this on everybody's radar, and I don't know what you know about this month. There's a lot of bigger things going on. I understand that. There is a safety issue I'm concerned about, and it has to do with traffic. The last 2 years since we moved here, since we moved here 2 years ago, I've noticed a significant increase in traffic, particularly along Orchard. So it's becoming a cut through from Lantana. I think those of you in the neighborhood know that. And I gotta tell you, over the holidays, on 2 occasions, I was out there with my grandkids, and it was close. And I was scared. If they had just wobbled out, car going 40 miles down there, it's just getting to be a dangerous road. And I don't think our road should be, we should encourage our roads to be a cut through for Lantana. Right? We need to be thinking about our citizens. And I don't know what to do about it. Now, I did see the sheriff. I think he's doing a great job. I see him out there all the time. I always wave to him, very nice guy. And actually on the way over, he pulled somebody over. The lights are glaring, but you can't be there 100% of the time. So I just like to read something that, this is from the Cross Timbers Gazette, this is December. I'll just read this to you. So the Flower Mound Town Council members last month voted 4-1 to lower the residential speed limit from 30 to 25. The process of swapping out speed limit signs is expected to take 18 months. Subdivision can request that the speed limit be raised back to 30 with 2/3 support from its residents. Now, I've talked to dozens of residents who are concerned about this also. Again, I don't know what next steps are. I'd like for this to be a discussion point in the future agenda. And if it helps, I can get a petition going to get it on everybody's radar, but I'm concerned about it. And I think we need to do something. Thank you.
Correct.
Yes.
Do we want that?
Flower Mound. Yeah, 4-1.
Thank you. It's Radley.
Thank you, Council, and Happy New Year. My name is Ted Stranzik. I live at 1020 North Prairie Trail Court. And I have a serious matter that reflects some activities by one of our council members. And it has to do with standards of conduct for elected officials. No town councilman shall represent or appear in behalf of private interests or others before any agency of the city or any town board, commission, or committee, nor shall he or she represent any private interest of others in any action or proceeding involving the town. Councilman Larry Hanson appeared before the November 2021 Town P&Z Commission and represented the interests of the Williams family. Now, I don't have a problem with the desire to do that. What I have is there is some legal requirements here for council people and elected officials when they go and speak in other commissions and yet have a vote on that very item later on. That simply isn't right. I suggest that because of that you, Mr. Hanson.
The name Johnson,
I'm sorry,
Larry Johnson.
I'm sorry, Larry Johnson, excuse me. Still suffering from COVID, I think. But the issue is that I think you need to recuse yourself from any proceedings as a result of your actions.
Thank you, Mr. Reddick.
Now, I'm not done. I have one other point to make. There's been a lot of controversy about red cars and everything else going around. And my opinion on behavior, again, this is a behavioral issue, has to do with people after a meeting going out and calling all of the participants in that meeting a mob. That just simply isn't acceptable, not from a council member. And again, Larry, it's been reported to me by several residents that you went around and did that. That's just simply not accepted. You owe the town, I was in that meeting, you owe me a personal apology for that type of careless language. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to see some action on that refusal.
Anyone else like to speak in the public input that's not related to the public hearing? Hearing none. We'll go to the next item, the staff and mayor's report. Council, I'd like to take a moment to thank Suzanne Moulton, Linda Langley, and Cheryl White. If you see all the decorations around town hall here and inside town hall, all the lighting, they're responsible for that, and they did the work. And I think we owe them gratitude for doing that, and we hope they'll do it again next year. So, I think you see Chin Chapel is complete. There's a few things here and there, but it's great to be able to go down to Fortune Tacos and turn around and come back up the same road and not have to make a circle or anywhere you want to go. So notice that it fixed a lot of drainage problems that was happening, especially up around the loop, around the roundabout. Also at Johnson Bridge, they fixed that erosion problems. So that's a plus. Well, I have, that's Member Castillo, I know you had something.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to update everybody as those of you sitting up here recall, we voted on using some of the funds that are in the that are set aside for court security. For those of you that weren't here, I had been advised by our sheriffs that we should take a look at some of the security here in town hall. And we were able to obtain some funds to do some upgrades. The first thing that has already been accomplished was some very specific situational awareness training for all the staff that work here day in and day out. And actually, their training is still ongoing. It's a 90-day program just to bring their level of awareness up. Because they do deal with a lot of people paying tickets that are rushing through town to get somewhere. And not a lot of them are very happy to come down and pay fines. So it's important that they feel a little bit more protected than they have been in the past. We did obtain and installed cameras throughout the building. Both the exterior and interior of the building are now monitored 24/7. And they're extremely high quality 4K cameras. And I believe the staff is pretty pleased with the way that's going. They all can monitor what's going on the outside of the building at all times. There's some minor things that I need to do just to finish up, little things that can be done to enhance security around the doors and such. The last big item that has not been done yet, I have made the contact for it, but it is to install ballistic glass where the money is exchanged and formed and so on. Again, we're not trying to make this Fort Knox, but we are trying to offer the ladies and gentlemen that work back there a little bit more comfort and an opportunity to feel a little bit safer. Donna, I don't know if you have anything to add. You guys seem pretty happy with what we've been able to do.
It's nice to be able to, when you're sitting at your desk and look on the outside of the building, because we do have some people that come in here that are pretty agitated.
So the process is ongoing. The next phase is going to take a little bit more time. I am being extremely cautious with the funds. Overall, there was a lot to do. The next biggest item is that ballistic glass, and I hope to get everything in well under budget. And I'll have a report once everything's complete to the council on how the money was used for that.
Anybody else?
Can I just ask a question? The agitation issue is an issue. I've seen it myself a couple times, being up here and watching people pay high fines. But previously, I had requested and asked for about, we had talked about strictly enforced speed limit signs underneath the speed limit sign on this road. And I know on Copper Canyon Road, every single one of the speed signs have strictly enforced them. Where are we at on that status of putting strictly enforced on those signs? So people will understand you can't speed in Copper Canyon.
Yeah, I have not ordered the signs to be added.
Is that something we need to have the council vote on?
I can get them in the road budget because we usually allot some for some.
What does the whole council want? Is the question. So should we have an agenda item
No,
on a future council meeting? No,
we haven't had.
should we?
It would be a budget item.
Okay, just have an agenda, future agenda, not necessarily next.
We'll need it to have a amendment.
So future agenda item.
Agendas.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. One other thing, just quick reminder, unfortunately, there's only a few of us invited, but I guess we are hosting the Denton County crime control luncheon tomorrow, crime prevention luncheon tomorrow, and Paul Castillo reached out to the governor's office and asked him if he'd come and speak. So the governor will be speaking at the crime prevention luncheon tomorrow, which we get to host as a hosting city. So looking forward to that. Next item of business is staff report. Anything on staff report, Chris or Donna?
None unless you have questions.
Good. Next item
I
is
have a couple questions with staff report, if you don't mind. Don and I talked about this. It's, the gas well report we have that you issued out and stuff like that.
Right.
Okay, so you sent us a letter that stated that the gas report and Sage Industries on Copper Bluff complies with state requirements.
Mhm.
Does it also comply with all of our town ordinances?
Oh, yes, the state is much stricter, and it's actually a TCEQ report, so if anyone wanted that, they have to go through TCEQ, but I'm sure it's open records.
Okay, well, as we all know, we've had an individual in our town that's had this issue of noise coming out of that gas well as long as I've been here and years before that. So he's been having this issue at his house for years. And I have a letter from that he had written, or his neighbors had written, because the neighbors had the same issue. And he sent it to Senator Jane Nelson. And Jane Nelson wrote back that the commission doesn't have the authority to regulate the issue as far as noise goes. It's entirely up to the purview of your local government.
That's right.
And she quoted, or her staff quoted, our own ordinance, which is still current ordinance, that says 8.0, 8.04. No one can render anything that renders the enjoyment of life or property uncomfortable or interferes with peace, public, and comfort, or causes a noise disturbance. That's in our thing, and that's enforceable by our town.
Right.
And
Yeah, TCEQ though, there's two different things here. TCEQ, the whole report, 52 pages, is to do with gas well emissions. Our ordinance deals with the noise level. I think I reported to y'all a few months ago that the inspector actually met him out there, the homeowner, at 2 a.m. and did all the testing, and it was within our ordinance for the sound level.
but if it doesn't, he's not able to enjoy his property, which he does not, from reports that I've had, and so are other neighbors. Okay. That we should be helping this guy out. We should be doing something to ensure, and I drive around, I've driven around to the other gas wells, not only here in Copper Canyon, but attaching our town, in Argyle, in Bartonville. Most of those places where there is housing around, their pumps are enclosed in a building. And their pumps have electric pumps. They don't have gas pumps or diesel pumps. That's close to our building. I don't know, the point is, we need to be able to help this man out and his family out and the other families in that neighborhood with that gas well.
I think.
And whatever we can do,
Yeah,
I think is
in every
important.
report, you'll see, if you saw the gas well reports, they went over and above board, the gas well company, to enclose that gas well, Copper Bluff, as much as they could. They put new equipment in there, they replaced all of the tanks. Any change that happens from now on would have to be by the council, the ordinance, the
Okay.
noise level, because it complies. We've had multiple people check it, and it complies, so.
It's below it, last 5 was tested at 52 decibels, and our ordinance is what, 60? Yeah, 60 decibel levels, and it was, the loudest they got was 52, and as low as 48. So that is well within our ordinances, and we can say we want to help, we can help them out, but those gas wells were there when they bought those houses.
Oh, I understand that.
Okay, so no, we didn't create this, and it would take the gas and oil company, gas company to come in here and want to build a multi-million-dollar building around it, and that's not for us to force them to do. If they are meeting the compliance, unless you want to put an agenda item to amend the gas well ordinance and lower our decimal levels to 52 or 50 or 48, takes 3 votes of the council to do that.
Okay, I appreciate that information, Mr. Mayor, and I'll take that into consideration for their meetings.
Thank you.
One more issue on a staff report or an issue for the town that Don and I talked about. And that concerns our Cross Timbers water. Don, we talked about this and stuff. And so on my street right now, there's repairs going on because the main broke. We have a leak, so I guess it's a leak, it's not really a main break. But they're repairing and stuff like that, and they terminated the water in a couple of houses and created some other problems for the houses. But I talked with the Cross Timbers management staff over there, Chad, and everything like that, and nobody was notified about this repair going on when they were gonna do it. They shut down our water and our neighbors' water and everything like that. And I'm kind of, it's more of an awareness item for the town than anything else for people. And that is, so right now, I'm trying to get, and I talked with Chad this morning. I asked them to review their IT department if they could electronically notify people by either a text or a voicemail or an email, either one of 3 ways, or maybe even all 3 ways, should there be no planned repairs done in the water area. And we were talking about why these leaks occurring. And it's because our houses were all built back in 1980, 82, 84 timeframe. And he called it text generation one. There's a name for the pipe that feeds our houses from the water mains, and that is starting to wear out. And he's seeing lots of breaks all over town. So for those of us that are COVID and stay at our houses and things like that, and you get a high water bill, you might want to go out and walk your property and see if you do have a leak. Okay? And the sooner you take care of it, the better off you're gonna be. Donna mentioned a couple of high bills that people had because they didn't even know they had water leaks. So the point is, watch out for your water lines starting to break because they're getting that age and they might need to be replaced. And also, Chad said there's a good possibility their IT department will have capability of either texting and emailing notification of any repairs to be done.
Yeah, because I think you said right now they're doing it just by like robocall.
A robocall.
and it will fix those up.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. Next item is consent. Next item is consent agenda. Any item on the consent agenda may be removed by any member of council for individual discussion or consideration. Council, anything on the consent agenda to be removed? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
I-
I have a motion by the mayor pro tem. Do I have a second?
I point of order real quick.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by the deputy mayor pro tem, the councilmember mayor.
Yes, just in page 3, on the attachments, it says emails attached to these minutes. There's no attachment to the email?
Yeah, you know what, they're on the one that's gonna be signed, they should have been part of the packet, but they're.
Okay, but you will have them attached, the emails attached, because I know George Bueller talked to me about that today. He wanted to make sure it was associated with minutes. Okay, thank you.
All right, next, all in favor?
Aye.
Council Mayor, aye. Aye, unanimous, motion carries. Next item is a continuation from November 22nd, 2021 council meeting. This is a continuation of a public hearing for the Williams development. Mr. Siciliano.
Yes, sir. We were given guidance, as you'll recall, to put 3/4 acre lots on the east side of our site and on the north side of our site. Last time on the far northwest side, we had 2 1/2 acre lots. We've changed that. We have all 3/4 acre lots on the east, all 3/4 acre lots on the north. I don't know how much you want me to review things. We've got a table that shows all the lot sizes, all the small lots of at least 1/3 of an acre. All the large lots are at least 3/4 of an acre. And I don't think there's anything else new here. We eliminated an emergency egress point because Ms. Shackelford didn't want it, so we've taken that off. As far as I can tell, we've done everything that council requested of us. And I guess I would answer questions unless you want an overview of some area.
Let's get to the public input on this, and then if we need questions, we'll probably. Okay, this goes to the public input. Anyone, if this is in favor or opposition, Kathleen Bexler.
Ron, you want to open up the public?
I did, it's continued. We're continued.
Good evening, happy new year. Catherine Bexler, 4536 Mahogany Lane, District of Carpatania. I just wanted to come up and say that we are in favor of the current proposed layout that Mr. Siciliano has for this development with the 3/4 acres on the north and on the east. So just want to say you're in favor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Luann Williams. Shabbat, okay. Janae Newton. Robin Douglas Davis.
Hi, Robin Douglas Davis, 581 Journey Inn. Mr. Siciliano, I appreciate your willingness to come and alter the plan so that it works for the people who live adjacent. A couple of things on the plan development agreement. One is the duplication of house plans. I'd like to see something in there that's a little more stringent on the duplication of house plans, including mirrored plans, so that all the houses don't look alike. I think that adds a tremendous amount to a development and also adds a lot to our town, since the rest of the houses in town are all custom. The building height of 42 feet is, I think, too high. I'd like to see it correspond with our ordinances, which is 35 feet in height. Protrusions into the front yard setback. Your front yard in these developments could be as small as 16 feet. You know, it's not even 10 yards. So I think that's kind of small. I think that's something that should be looked at. And then those of you who've lived here for a long time know the difficulty and the effort we put into having a tree ordinance that the whole town can get behind. I'd like to see those tree ordinances apply to this development. And then the last thing is the street light. I'd love to see the street lights comply with the international dark sky. Essentially what they do is that the street lights project their light downward rather than upward. And then the color of the light is more on the warm spectrum, so the more yellow light rather than blue light, which interferes with migratory bird patterns. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Henry.
I'm Nancy Henry at 7611 Lonesome Duck Lane, Copper Canyon. Thank you for making those changes for the estates and the shoppers. I appreciate it. I'm like Robin, I'd like to see the lights down 35 foot high like our ordinance states and the rooftops. And I was just going through this new thing that was handed out. And is there anything that's been written up about the entrance off 407?
You need to address the council, not the audience.
Okay. I was just wondering if anything, I was addressing the not audience. I was just wondering if anything had been planned out about the entrance off 407.
This is a zoning case.
Okay.
That'll be part of planning, if there's more.
Okay. Well, I'd like to see it stay R2, but I know it's not going to, and I appreciate them putting in the 3 quarters on the north and the east side. And thanks.
Ted Spransky.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I've got a few comments to make about the document. Our legal counsel, I guess, reviewed this document and approved it for public analysis. Is that correct?
Correct.
I have reviewed this document, and in past history, I review a lot of documents. And I have found about 19 specific errors in this document. Now, this is a legal document. It's not some vague reference that, well, you know what I mean type stuff. And what I want to do is I want to go over some of these with you and point out that we need to do a better job. We have legal obligations here, and there are just many of these particular errors are just, I don't know, you look at the agenda items and you look at the fact that the ordinance says the location of the property is between Copper Canyon Road and Gin Chapel. And then on the next paragraph, it says it's Copper Canyon and Jernigan Road. Well, what is it? You know, these are simple errors, but they should not be being made, plain and simple. If I look at the ordinance itself, I feel that it has been very poorly written. And then when you take all of the issues of ordinance changes, of master plan changes, of everything, you do that in one sentence, it's doing an injustice to everybody. It doesn't leave a good audit trail for future people to say, well, what really happened? It needs to be better defined and specifically addressed, and it is. If I look at the, whereas clause, at the end it says comprehensive zoning ordinance and maps should be amended. I think it should say shall. We haven't had it, anything amended, I don't think, the 4 years that I've been here. And it should be. If I look into section 1, and again, you see the exhibit with the wrong references to roads. If you look at section 4, the paragraph doesn't read exactly correct. The last sentence says in accordance with developed regulations. What developed regulations? Now, and by the way, I've got a sheet here I can hand out to the secretary, someone that has all these notations, and I think they need to be correct.
Yeah, Mr. Frederick, you would give that information to Donna, she'll pass it on to the town attorney.
Well, I
If there's
would
something
like-
We can do, and,
Mayor, I would like a
we'd be
little
happy
bit
to
more
do that.
time to go over some of these errors, because I think they're important in the fact
Let
that,
me pick consensus of council, would you like to allow Mr. Frederick more time to go over these individually? Or do you want to put a time limit?
Yes,
on it?
I would. I'd like to hear what he has to say.
That's good for you. Councilmember Johnson,
no,
Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like a list of it submitted. I think these are, as you said, spelling errors, grammar errors, or references that are correct. I think we can do this administratively.
Would you would like to cut or council, the consensus of council to allow more time, yes or no? No, thank you, Mr. Frederick. Mr. Anderson,
So, Mayor, can I make a point of order, please? The question of order, I guess. So if he's gonna submit his issues, if they are clerical errors, I understand that, and writing errors. But if there are errors that have detail or importance to the import of the document here, are we gonna be able to study that before we vote on this?
we'll be able to amend that at some point. And we'll come back to the council with some amendments of the city, if the town attorney deems it necessary, but we spent the town attorney a lot of money to write this document, to be a part of this document. And, the town attorney feels that that document's a good document. So, if he would like to submit his issues, they can look at it and we can approve this tonight. And they can bring it back if they feel necessary. They can bring it back and we can amend that. But this is a zoning case.
I will make the statement one more time, Mayor and Council. This document is not ready for prime time. It should not be approved in its current context.
I don't see a legal attorney after your name, so I have to go with
You
my
know,
attorney.
I don't have to be a legal attorney to
Councilmember,
read a
and
contract and
Mr.
see
Anderson,
all the
Mr.
mistakes that are made.
Anderson, Mr. Anderson, or Ms. Anderson. Thank you.
I'm not here.
This is my first time here, but I would just like to say that I would like to oppose the 30-acre lot, 40-acre lot, whatever the smaller lot. And I lived here in over 12 years.
Or
Name and address.
name of the, I have it,
Holly Anderson,
I have it. I'm
380 Mobile Drive, Papa Canyon, off of Chin Chapel. And I lived here for about 12 years. And I love.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Could you speak this?
You can speak into the.
Oh,
Is that right? Opposing. I love the rural area. I've lived here for about 12 years and love the rural area and opposing the 3/4 lots, the quarter lots, the 30-acre lots. Because when I moved here because of the ruralness. The fact that everyone has horses, everyone has chickens, everyone has goats, everyone has space for being able to have that option of having, space to have animals, have a farm that you want to, having the option of being able to lower your taxes with animals, being able to, give and supplement to your neighbors with milk or with eggs or, help out your fellow neighbors with things like that. And the away you know, the plan, you take away, space and the ability to do things like that, and you take away, being able to get to know your neighbor and being able to do things like that. And I think that that's a big part of being neighborly and being able to do things like that. I think a lot of why it is so quiet and so nice and Carp Canyon is because everyone is so spaced out. And I think if you close all that down and put so many houses together and make everybody look alike and make it look like a village and no one will go up, and then you guys have to put in HOA and nobody wants to afford more and have to afford more in the economy that's going up and raising prices and higher as it is. And nobody wants to live like that. So I'm just saying that I oppose it. I like the way that we live right now and stay the same.
You know, that was.
The times here.
I'm at for.
You know, Tancia, 435 Noble Drive, I definitely opposed the 30 acre lots and anything smaller than an acre. But I'd like to give my time to Ted.
No, ma'am. No.
Here,
Ben's had his time twice tonight. If you'd like to make a comment, please do. We don't share time.
okay, I definitely, I used to be a grade school teacher. And I'm a grammar crazy, and I think that anything that invalidates the truth of the document makes the document worthless. So I don't know what he's referring to, but if he's found the errors, then I think they invalidate the document. That's number one. But I would like to know if it's true that if we make these changes, our town is subject to Fair Housing Act, which mandates multiple housing.
No, ma'am, it is not true.
It is not true.
It absolutely is a completely misleading statement that was written. It is not true. 30 acre lot does not make the town subject to Housing Act mandated requirement multifamily housing because it does not have enough capacity that in the sewer system, and we do not own the sewer system. Flower owns it, Flower Mound owns it, and it has a capacity of only 400,000 gallons per day capacity, and that's for both sides of 407. So multifamily is totally not an option at all for this property, or ever would be. And this cannot happen, and sewer cannot go beyond the boundaries of town center. It does not have capacity. So that is absolutely misleading information. Thank you, ma'am. All right, anybody else on public hearing? Hearing none, seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, can I make one word, please?
We're going to, yes, go ahead.
Just on the public hearing, I thought that was an unfair comment that you made to Ted because he spoke twice on two different subjects. He only spoke his fair time on each subject, so.
Thank you. Next item is discussion and consideration of the zoning change on ordinance 22-001, request to amend the master plan ordinance, comprehensive zoning map, Copper Canyon from RE2 to PD. Council, this is, we've heard this in November. We asked the developer to bring back a revised plan showing complete 3/4 acre, which he's done that. And when you look at the plan, there's actually some half acre lots on there. And actually all the lots are over 1/3 acre. They're all somewhat, a little bit over. With that, I'll go to council for discussion. Councilmember Andrews. Any questions or?
No, I just want to make a statement. Thank you. That I was really mixed when the last meeting was to some degree, but I did go have a chance to look at the ordinance. And I do thank you, sir, for coming back to us with a program here and a plot plan per se, or a layout plan, whatever it is you call it. And that it does meet the requirements of the town's ordinance. And I want to thank you for that. I looked it over pretty close. I was looking at some of your drawings here about sewers and all this. I had some questions about that, but I did a little research. And I am familiar with the Flower Mound sewer thing that used to be over there. My other property and the Flower Mound was involved in that bringing forth. And that was quite an ordeal and undertaking when that happened. If that hadn't happened then, nothing out here would be happening, period. So I do thank you for what you've done for us tonight.
No, for Mayor.
Yes, I've got a couple questions, and I think it's important to discuss. There's a few more details, which is Cecilia, we've talked about in this room, that I'd like to ask you a couple questions. But my first question I want to ask is, I need to ask Steve Hill a question. You were on the council, and it matches up with what Dale just said. You were on the council when the intent of zoning for a state's transition was done for 3/4 acre, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you were right. And so was the intent of the estate's transition to be 3/4 acres throughout the entire property owned by Ms. Williams? I own the estate transition for 3/4 acre minimum lots. Was that the intent that your
The
council?
intent was the properties immediately adjacent to the estates would be 3/4 of it.
And is it true that every master plan map has shown 3/4 acre through that entire Ms. Williams property? And did you?
We didn't have the Williams concept, we didn't know how big it would be. All we intended was the properties immediately adjacent with 3/4 acre in size.
Okay, that wasn't stated. Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. So your property, your zoning meets that requirement, and I want to make sure that was clear on what we have here. So I had a conversation with the ex-mayor, Sue Camel, and she told me, when I asked her the very clear question at that time, in the 2015 meeting, if the estate's transition, the entire property was intended to be 3/4 acres, and her answer to me emphatically was absolutely yes. Now that being, why am I saying this? I'm saying this because I'm pointing out, just like Dale did here, Mr. Siciliano has worked hard with the estates people on their properties. The estates people in the town have also worked hard in moving forward and designing a pathway that we can get this property done properly for everybody's satisfaction. Save some people who want it 3/4 acre or greater the whole way. And my point is, on this issue, is that it is just that this property does not just affect the state's transition or Jeannie Shackelford's property. It affects the entire town. We've had two people up here who have never, correct me if I'm wrong, have never spoken at a town council meeting. Is that correct? Ms. Anderson and Ms. LaFond, have you ever spoken? You spoken before? You have not. So you come on your own, and you live up in Mobile Drive, which is on the north side of town for people who don't know where that's at. So this affects the entire town, okay? And it's an important issue. So with that, I have several questions that I have to ask, all right? That's just assuming, first of all, I want to tell you, you've gone through a lot of personal stress and personal issues with this town.
I was like that age when I first applied.
Very clear, but you're still good looking, all right? And I know in your first proposal, the first TRC, which is the Developer Review Committee, that you showed a map in your presentation, which Mr. Castillo found, that showed 1/3 acre lots. Now, that map was never authorized by the town council. Never, as far as a master plan map. My question that I've been asked, and I'm gonna ask tonight, where did you get that map from? Who gave you that map?
I can't tell you, we've gotten so many things, this has been a process for a year now.
Oh, sure.
We've got things from the newspaper and from the broker and from staff and from the citizens. They've all given me different versions of that. We never knew which one was right. I mean, I don't really know.
Okay. Okay, well,
Everybody said this is the one. I'm sorry.
okay, well, you did not get that map from me, I'll say that.
No, definitely not.
You sent me personally 2 separate letters that I did not answer you because I didn't feel it was proper for me to negotiate outside of an open meeting with the development committee. Okay? In the last meeting, I asked you about your wastewater disposal plan and what you're gonna do. You stated to me and the town council on record that you're gonna take all the wastewater and drive it all the way up north to a pump station? Am I correct with the terminology?
What happens is everything will gravity feed from all the existing lots up and to the west to the pump station. And the pump station will feed it all the way back through the property and connect to Toll Brothers.
Okay,
Yes.
and I'm sure there's an engineering reason why that makes sense. But is an engineer here to tell me this?
This really isn't its own part of zoning.
But, Mr. Mayor, can I respect,
This is not part of zoning.
Mr. Mayor, can I
This
respectfully?
is zoning and PD. If you have a zoning question, let's ask the zoning questions. That is an engineering question, it's not part of zoning.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, can I ask this question though, because the zoning ordinance that's being proposed has sewer in it, it has layout of streets in it, it has everything that I'm talking about, street concept regulations, preliminary storm sewer plan, this is all part of the ordinance that we're voting on. So I'm trying to make sure that we're all on the same page and we understand what's going on with this plan. Thank you. Can you explain this to me why this makes technological sense to drive all the sewer away from where the 407 connection is?
Well, they're going with the down, well, the intent was.
Please speak up.
This is Derek Jones with McAdams. Our intent was to have all the sewer being basically serviced on site. And also, make preparations for any future development. So any future development to the west or maybe to the north of the property, be able to connect to us or connect to have sewer service in the future. So basically, everything is contained on site and pumped back down into the Victory Toll Brothers lot to the south of the property.
Okay, thank you very much. So,
Just big picture.
yes, sir.
We were first told we had to connect to the left church. Down by the church, that's what we got.
Sure.
First told we had to connect.
Okay,
When we engineered it, we found we had to go all across the front of Toll Brothers and tear up all their landscaping and hardscape to go over there. We went to Toll Brothers and they said, if you'll connect on the right side of our property, if you went straight south, you see that knuckle on Toll Brothers across Justin,
okay,
we can connect right there, just go straight across and connect, but it's higher than the church. So it forced a pump station. Otherwise, we could gravity fed more. We still would have had to pump some. But because this is higher and we have to pump it all over, they brought it all down to the pump station and brought it back.
okay, all right, well, that's a good explanation. We all can understand that, I'm sure. But the mention of a future development of the west, have you had any conversations with anybody on a development of the west of your property or this proposed zoning area at all? Have you personally had any discussions?
We've talked to the town engineer about capacity. And we have the capacity for everything from the west to bring the sewer in, it's in town center. We've not opened discussions with every individual property. But the Victories have a pro rata, and this will handle that. And Oxy Button has a pro rata, and this has the capacity for that. Is what I've been assured, and what Chris, I think, was opined on.
I think the only thing we hadn't made a clear decision on is the pro rata agreement and what that would be.
But the capacity is there to service town center with what we have, is that correct?
Correct.
So everything that's in town center to the west, this would have capacity for them to pump to that station and then down to Toll Brothers.
So you're gonna put a sewer line underneath your plan from last time and this diagram of this.
Caleb, is this further questions for this?
It's in the ordinance that your lawyer.
Future developments?
No, I'm talking about his development. He brought up the subject of future development. I'm talking about his layout of his design for the sewer plant. It's in the packet and it's in the ordinance on the written issue.
Discussion with future property owners is not part of the zoning, no, part of this case.
Okay,
We put the capacity there, so it's in your. They should have the capacity to tap in and use this.
so in your previous, here's my question. The question is, for you, is like this one is, in exhibiting your previous proposal from last time of the, what was that, November. You have your street, typical street section in exhibit D, it has proposed sanitary sewer, it has one line. And it has a proposed storage sewer underneath the roadway. Okay, are you gonna put two lines underneath there, and is it gonna be big enough to handle any future development to the west?
Yeah, the small line is the one that gravity feeds up into the west. And then the 4-inch line is what comes from our pump station and pumps it all back. And what will happen is supposedly this pump station should be temporary. And as you know, the town is supposed to put in a regional facility. And then this would have the capacity for the regional facility to pump that through the lines we have in, and that's what we dropped in criticism.
The town is not in the sewer. So
The town's putting in this,
the town is not putting in a regional facility. The town is not in the sewer business. The town of Copper Canyon does not own the sewer line. It is a Flower Mound line, and it's only brought to the property, and then from there, the developers take it the rest of the way in town center. So the town does not put in a regional system.
okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So where do you find that, where did you get informed that the town was gonna put a sewer system in? Who told you
The
that?
town has planned a regional lift station. You wanna,
Yes.
you wanna address that?
As part of that master plan that was put together several years ago, and the development that was in there based on the elevations of all that property, the Vickery property, everything else, in order to make that development work, which shown in the concept from several years ago, they would require a lift station to bring all that back to the existing sewer line.
But that would not be a city project.
Correct,
That would
yeah.
be a developer project.
That would be the
Develop that
responsibility of the developer.
So it's not a sewer plant, it's just a lift station.
It is not a treatment plant.
Correct.
It's not a treatment plant in the town of Copper Canyon, to be clear.
Yes, and just add a little bit more to that, the idea with having the lift station on his northwest corner is that's his local point, but it's much higher than all the Vickery property. So if that ever came to develop, what would happen is it would allow this property to gravity feed at some future point to whatever that development is. And that way this lift station could be abandoned at some point in the future. And that was kind of the idea of where it was placed.
Okay, the next question I have is, according to your plans, the sewer line will be going under the roadway, under the Williams plan, is that correct? Is that what your plan is?
Yes.
So what happens when that breaks? Are you gonna shut down the road and nobody can get out, or how does that work? You go one lane road.
Actually,
Okay.
it's a 2-lane road.
2-lane road, so you just,
It's just basically one lane will be shut down just to make those repairs, and once the repairs are done, we'll bring it back up. But
All right.
it's a 2-lane road.
all right, very good. I've been asking questions, Mr. Mayor, I'm asking questions that I've been asked.
Some of your questions, I understand a lot of your questions, but some of these questions do not pertain to this zoning case.
Once again, I want to refer back to the
You
ordinance.
refer to it, continue forward, but
Could I, I'll continue.
I'm sure you have plenty of them. And as you ask your question, I'm gonna be sure that the attorney agrees that it's appropriate to the zoning
Okay.
case.
That's fine with me, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Lift station, how much noise does the lift station make? Is this sitting right next to one of our properties that you're proposing?
I don't know if you wanna do this, they're not loud, they're not 50 decibels, let's put it that way.
To be honest, I'm not exactly sure about how loud they are, but I don't think they're as loud as the gas issue that we talked about.
Okay.
They're a lot quieter than that. We put them in before. I don't have a reading, but it's nothing like a gas.
Have you put them in before into neighborhoods right next to properties just like this?
Yes,
And right on the, it's right on the bottom.
yeah, they almost know you go somewhere and then we either put a building in there or a pit. We know how they're gonna be designed that. That's part of the design phase.
Sure.
We've got to commission an engineer to design that. And we're not far enough to know exactly what they're gonna come up with yet. We just know the capacities there, the location.
My intent of these questions is to ensure that I'm protecting the people who are gonna buy these $800 to $1 million houses here. I don't want them coming back in 2 years or 5 years and saying, I got a noise problem sitting in my backyard. which we didn't think about in other issues in before.
You know, you'll see an actual design when we commission. We're not gonna commission something until we know we have our zoning. We're not gonna spend the money to go commission. And that's $250,000.
Understand, and I don't blame you for that, by any means. Next question is on the zoning. We have beautiful pine trees, it was mentioned earlier tonight on the front part of the property. You're gonna destroy all those? They're all gonna be gone?
We showed an exhibit where we're gonna try and save trees. They're on the front, on the east side toward the states, and on the northeast corner. You have to realize those lots have paths that are 80 feet wide by 90 feet deep. Sure, to take everything out of the path.
Sure.
We also have to grade that to drain. All that drainage is gonna go to the street. So all the back of the lots that aren't high enough to go to the street have to be raised. We don't wanna take out any trees that we don't have to, but if we don't grade it to drain properly, you're gonna be hearing from a lot of homes.
Yeah, oh no, I totally understand that too. But my point is, we had a significant issue on tree removal on Shin Chapel Road, with quite a few comments about we're removing some low trees. Now we have, if you want to call them classic, pine trees in the front of our, I don't know how old they are, probably, you know, we're going to be destroying those beautiful trees, which we have right up front of our old town hall.
Yeah, those on the east side are about 30 years old, I would think 35. So they've still got some life left in them. We want to save what we can, or we have to grade the lot. We can't do anything to grade the lot.
I've been here 40 years and they were that tall 40 years ago.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
We were guessing.
And so the next question is on the entryway for the Vickery property, which is part of zoning. Do you have a commitment, a written letter from Mr. Vickery authorizing you that property?
We agreed orally, we circulated documents, and we had the form of the document, and when we were tabled last time we were here, we stopped work on it.
Is there a Vickery representative here tonight at all?
Yeah, there is.
Okay, so what is the status of the land you're donating or producing for this product? I mean, what are you gonna do with it? You giving it to them? You selling it to them? Are you absolutely giving him this entryway on your property?
We're opening the gates.
We have a legal agreement. Lawyers, I'm not really.
Caleb, that's not, this is not a negotiation between them, it's just.
Okay, but it is gonna be done though.
That has to be done, but there's got two entrances, they're negotiating with the entrance Vickery again. Next question.
Okay, next question.
Can I say one thing? Everything that has been done and to do with that has been done to protect the future viability of that area and also the future ability to light the traffic light there, which everybody seems to want for that would make it safer in that area.
Thank you.
That's something that we take very seriously as citizens we are. And we appreciate working together.
Thank you.
Yes, and I think everybody would agree if this project goes through that, 407 with the speed on that highway right there, 45 miles an hour, traffic lights, so the question is who's gonna pay for that traffic light?
That's text up,
Next time we pay for that traffic light, we cannot be committed to that.
Text up.
They have to. All right,
text up.
that's fine there too. Just being.
Yeah, not part of zoning.
Okay. But the entryway is creating a requirement. Oh, yeah, no question about it. I get that. So the next question that I have for the lawyer is, what's that? Oh,
No, please, just. Go ahead. You have a question for the attorney?
since the lawyer, the document here has been written up as an entire document for this project, this one project, this project alone, is that true?
That is the subdivision.
The subdivision. Yeah, what if the subdivision, what if he doesn't get DOT approval for a street light there? or
He doesn't have to get
whatever?
DOT. It does not have to have DOT approval for this subdivision. It's not part of zoning.
Okay, well,
Okay, so if you want, it's not part of zoning. DOT has nothing to do with it. Neither does a deceleration lane at this point. It has not, it can't, it's just not, so
Okay.
stick to the zoning
All right.
case. And if you have a question for the attorney about the valid, how valid his document is, ask him that.
so if this document allows the zoning to go through, and we don't get a light, we're gonna be exposing those people coming out of there to entering 407 at 45 miles an hour.
Caleb, this is not part of it.
I don't care about that. Okay, well, that's
not part of
okay.
this.
That's okay. I mean, if that's an issue.
You can get, when you get done politicking, Councilmember Mayor, let me know, but this is not, you're getting off course here.
Mr. Mayor, could we call the question?
I'd be happy to for other comments from other councils if you have any. If not, I'd call the question.
It's enough of this nonsense.
Mayor, if I have may I comment?
Please.
If I could first address, Ms. Anderson, is it? Because you had a very valid point, and I wanted to just let you know, a lot of us have spent a lot of time working on this. You and other people that live in this wonderful town are being subjected to a lot of propaganda. What reasons there are behind there, I don't know. We sit up here and we deal with what has come before us in many cases, many decades. We are not sitting here trying to make the whole town 1/3 acre multifamily buildings. So don't believe that. If you have a question, please call the staff. We do have zoning for the town. There's a map of it right next door. They can help you to understand that a lot of this stuff you hear is incorrect. And it is meant to inflame and irritate you. We've gotten plenty of people that have called us exacerbated with the thought that the town's going to be 1/3 acres. So please don't believe that. We are dealing with things that have been on the books for over 20 years. We are trying to solve the problems. We're trying to work with the developers that have come forward to try to make the best development we can, to try to make the citizens that are directly affected by this as comfortable as possible. We've worked with the estates as much as possible. We've worked with the Shacklefords. We've done everything we could with Ms. Williams to try to be totally fair to her. And also, as a town, Mr. Siciliano, I don't know him. We're trying to work with him. He seems to be trying to do a very good thing. And so please don't believe the propaganda. There's going to be a lot more of it. So just pick up the phone, call and ask. Mr. Siciliano, thank you. You and I have worked a lot on this since you first brought it up. And thank you for making the extra effort. Sure, we would all love it to be 2 acres or 10 acres or 100 acres, but it is what it is. This was all put in place for us. I apologize that you were blindsided like this during this meeting. Most of us are here just to try to look at the facts, look at what we've done, look at what we brought last month, back in November, and either pass it or not. But thank you for the efforts that you made.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Mayor, I think one thing that would be helpful is Jeannie Shackelford is here, and I think it's important to hear from her.
I would be happy to. Mr. Siciliano, any other comments for us? If not, I'm going to go. My public hearing is still open. Jeannie, would you like to make a comment? If you would, please approach the podium if you'd like to make a comment.
I'm Jean Courtwright. We own the land north of the development, and I do believe that Dave has really done what we asked him to do, and I do appreciate that. And, you know, he's doing the board-on-board fence on all, both sides. And, I'd love for it to stay 2 acre, but I feel like if we get too greedy, it's gonna come back to bite us. And, I appreciate you, Jeff. I do think there's a ton of questions that need to be answered, and Ted, and I appreciate all of y'all. Appreciate all the work y'all have done. I really do. And I do hope that Peter's family
And Dave can work something out, so that could just be one joint entryway. And, I don't know what else to say. We've been doing this for so long. I think we're all really worn out, and I don't want to throw it out here either, guys, but I think the 3/4, he's really done what we've asked him to do.
Thank you, Gene. Appreciate it. Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem, you started to say something.
Well, I'm happy to
Councilmember
let Larry go
Councilmember
first,
Johnson.
and I'll
First, congratulations to the mayor and the council members who have constructively worked on a very difficult project. And Jeannie, you said it right. We tried to get to the right place. Catherine, we worked hard to get to the right place. Is it perfect? Heck, no. And folks, get ready. We are going to be dealing with this issue, not just tonight, more and more in the future. And it's difficult, it's challenging, and nobody's gonna walk away with 100%. But Catherine, you did a great job representing the interests of the estates. Jeannie, you did a great job representing your family's interests. Luann, I think people listened to you in November, and we are where we are. Again, thanks to a lot of hard work by council members and a mayor who wanted to make something good for this town.
Thanks, sir.
A couple comments. I was gonna thank and be thankful to a lot of the folks that Larry and the you've acknowledged here. And, you know, frankly, I've been a steward of the town's interests for a long time. And I've sat up here for quite a long time. Not just one, but two master planning sessions. And for a little history, I think 10 years ago, we had the same questions. 20 years ago, we had the same questions. In fact, how do we keep the town rural? And Ms. Anderson, I know your comments are heartfelt. We all feel that here. I think everybody in town wants to maintain the rural nature of the town. And to do that, we have to be smart about how we develop properties along 407. Back in 2007, there was a master plan that contemplated development along to that corridor, 407, of multifamily and retail on both sides of the street. So for any of you who moved to the town in the last 18 years, you might have missed that, but that was there. And you could have seen that that was part of the plan of the town intended to maintain larger acreage everywhere else. That's the purpose. So the town isn't one thing. It's an actual community of multiple interests, multiple locations, multiple geographic challenges and densities. And the 407 corridor is a unique part of our town. The first master plan contemplated that, and the second master plan contemplated the same thing. They actually reduced the density a little bit, but there were still higher densities along that corridor. And I think to be rational, we have to understand that's going to happen. But how do we do it best? I think that's where all of us work together. I think this exercise, painful as it was, is an example of us coming together and actually working through to get to a place where we can be happy. And I think going forward, we're going to have to practice the same discipline. Financially, legally, and respectfully to the people that own the land and want the right to sell it. We can't get in that way. We have to be reasonable in how we measure our interests with the interests of the people that own the land and want to sell it. So I think we did a good job here. I'm supportive of this concept. I think there are lots of things that probably can be tweaked, and Ted, I appreciate your comments. And whatever criticisms that we have in this document, spelling errors, grammatical errors, or reference errors, we can fix them. That's easily done with an amendment. So I welcome that. We'll get it in here and we'll fix it. But the spirit of what we want to pass, as far as I'm concerned, is do we want to allow this plan to proceed as presented. And I think, I think you said it. We did everything, you've done everything in this plan that has been asked. So I'm supportive of it. And that's all I have to say about it.
Thank you. Councilman Brandon. You spoke earlier.
There it is. I turned it off so that you could roaming around here. This has been a real tug with me because I don't want to let my personal feelings get in the way of what is written here and what is really the spirit of the master plan. And so I think, again, a while ago, but I think the council here also, but really, if it's in there, black and white, I really don't have a choice if I do my job. So I say, yes, we're gonna do this. And I thank you for your help.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna go, is there a motion to approve?
I make a motion we approve the ordinance.
I have a motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
I have a second by Deputy Mayor Pro Tem. One comment, while I have a motion in a second. This is like the Mayor Pro Tem and Larry said, this isn't gonna quit. There's a lot of property still, I don't know, 60 or 70 acres there. It's owned by other property owners. Ma'am, it's already zoned 1/3 acre. Master plan, the town center planning that goes back to 2005. And 1/3 acre.
Along that corridor.
We're not changing
I understand that.
it. It doesn't mean, we're not changing it. And we're not rezoning. Yes, this 10 acres was left out and it not intentionally. It was left out accidentally. It was always part of Plan PG. It was always part of town center. That was the intent. So, and the document that goes out, it says that we're gonna be multifamily, it's not true. It was just misleading lies. That's what it was.
I heard that on more than.
I understand, but it's just not possible. So please make a comment on that.
I just had one thing to say, and nothing against what you said, Steve, but, and I understand that this has been in the plan for a long time. But I could be totally wrong on this, but my gut feel is that the number of people who are now going to live in the town of Concord Canyon, north and south of 407, are going to outnumber by leaps and bounds the number of people who have larger acre lots further north. And once it comes to that, we will have absolutely no say in what happens next in this government.
And I respect that position and that question, and we've actually, it was a meeting in the early fall of last year. And one of my thoughts on that was taking a different tack, which was instead of making it us them, let's embrace them. Let's let those people know that they're part of a really special community, that they can use the trails, they can come up and have access to space, the green, the animals that they can see walking along the roads. I see people from Flower Mound walking their town because they enjoy it. I see people from Highland Village walking their town because they enjoy it. So I would say, you know what? Let's embrace them. Say, guess what? You lucked out. You live in the town of Copper Canyon, and here's why it's special. And we might not have that best done. But if we start with that, we can assure ourselves of issues. So I appreciate your comment. I just want to take the other tack, which is let's try to embrace them.
I'm gonna take a roll call vote. I have a motion. I have a second. Councilmember Mayor.
I'll delay my vote to the last because I was denied that vote the last time.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Councilmember Johnson. go ahead.
In favor, yes.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Aye.
Deputy Mayor Pro Tem.
Aye.
Councilmember Andrews.
Aye.
Councilmember Mayor.
There's lots of reasons why I'm gonna vote, and there's lots of reasons why, and I appreciate everything that's said. We've worked really hard, as everybody said. I wasn't able to continue my taking because I'm not doing that.
Yes, you are. Well,
No, I'm
you
not.
vote,
No, I'm
please.
not,
What
Mr.
you-
Mayor. I'm explaining. We would not have got here today if we didn't have somebody standing up for the people. And Mr. Siciliano, you got the 3/4 acres in, you originally said you couldn't do it, you got it in, and that's a great thing. And everybody, and people are happy. And yes, you can, I'm sorry, people, yes, you can stop, Bartonville's doing it. Bartonville's doing it, their town council people are doing it, we can do it, I vote nay.
4-1, motion carries. Next item is discussion, consideration, taking action regarding the code of ethics ordinance and all matters incidental hereto. I don't know who brought this forward, so I have an idea. Remember Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any comments?
I'd like to listen to the discussion. I have a couple of comments on it today, but I think I'd like to get educated on what everybody else is thinking about this particular.
My opinion is, when I was swore in, I took an oath that I would uphold the laws of the state and the government. And city.
I have a lot of questions about it for sure, but I think it's
I have no comments. Councilmember Mayor.
Yes, so I brought this forward again because most other towns have an ethics clause in their town council ordinances. And we had that passed and it was removed on day one by the current council, and so I just don't see a problem without having it, with an ethics clause as an ordinance in the government positions and things, and that's why I bring it back up. So hopefully maybe we have cooler heads to be able to vote on this or whatever, but I thought it was going to pass.
Councilmember Johnson. I asked you to look into this early last year, and I know you spoke with Bob. I know we could talk about a code of conduct for council. And I don't know where we stand today.
Jeff, what specific things are you willing, or what is it you want to fix that is broken? Is there a specific, I've been on this council now for 9 months. You superseded me by a year. So what specific items do we need to address so that you can sleep well at night? Because clearly you can go to Highland Village and sleep well at night with the code of ethics. You can go to Louisville, you can go to Flower Mound. What is happening here that we need to fix?
Well, there's so many that are really
Specifics.
okay. Specifics, okay. So in this whole project that just passed from Mrs. Siciliano, he started out with a 1/3 map. He said, I have a letter from him that said he got it from somebody on the town staff. I don't know who that was. I don't know whether if, whatever, for 1/3 acre, which wasn't a proper map. Okay, and everybody denies having that. But that's not right. And he wouldn't have had so much strain in getting his project passed. Miss Williams wouldn't have had so much problems getting her money for her property if he had started off with a proper map.
But Jeff, the code that is the draft ordinance here doesn't address that.
My point is you guys are continually saying that this is been such a hard process, if you start off on the right step. And so somebody usurped the right step by doing that. That's the first one that I can come off the top of my head. Also interrupting people while they're talking, interrupting people and making comments about what they're saying on the microphones and things like that, and open speak. That needs to be stopped. And that's what I'm talking about. If we don't have the code of ethics to do that, that's where we're at.
Jeff, if this ordinance doesn't
I
deal with
make a
that,
motion that we vote on this. I make a motion, we vote.
but so let me get this straight. We don't have anything specific in the last 2 years that tells us we need to do this. And by the way, you realize Steve Hill and myself, we spend many hours every year having to go do mandatory attendance at ethics classes. And I think we can spot ethical issues, not to mention our staff. And what is it? I mean, the thing that jumps out at me in this ordinance is essentially we set up a gatekeeper where nobody can talk to anybody in this town without the approval of, quote, the council. And this is a refried version of what got repealed in May. It's just a lighter version. It's refried, but it's the same thing.
Larry, you were asked, you said you'd have in 6 months a new program for us for this when you guys passed it.
Yeah, well, you know what the problem is, Jeff?
I don't know.
We're still trying to figure out what is it that you're afraid of. All one can figure out after looking at the January, February ram down of the first one, which was repealed in May. Gee, surprise, surprise.
So, Larry referenced my name, so I'll comment. I spend about 30 hours a year on ethics training. In fact, I'm probably the only person in the room that works in the industry that if our firm gets indicted, we lose our license to practice. Not convicted, indicted. So we are radically sensitive to ethics, in fact, and in appearance. And I've looked at what was proposed to be done, and my first bias is to always make sure the right language is in to guide behaviors, because ethics is, at the end of the day, rooted in behavior, right? And I certainly hope that, you don't take this the wrong way, Jeff, that I couldn't find what this is fixing. In fact, there's a danger in over-engineering words. And I looked at some of the proposed language that's problematic. One of them was no council member can talk to an employee, which is not defined. In its nature, the discussion we had with outsiders relative to companies could have been perceived to be an issue with ethics. I don't think it is. I think it's perfectly inappropriate to do so. But in this language, that would be a problem. The other thing is, the Texas Municipal League has exhaustive language on ethics, and there's a manual for mayors and council members that you get. I'm sure you've read it. There's training around it. They have very clear guidance on ethical behavior, not just on the overt nature of how you talk to the people, how you negotiate, but nepotism, purchasing, all kinds of things. And to be frank with you, I've been tested in my tenure as a council member here. I've had people try to buy me. And that ended the conversation and, by the way, the relationship. I've seen behavior that may on the surface appear to have had a close proximity to a line with some of the council members in the past, but after having discussions with them, nothing was indeed unethical. I don't think anybody in this town that I've seen in 18 years has done anything overtly unethical. Silly, maybe. They were wrong, maybe, but not unethical. Additionally, there are guidelines with the state that manage ethics. There's a hotline that you can call, that anybody can call if they see anything or feel like there's unethical behavior. So when I look at the language in TML's document, and I look at the state law, and when I look at other organizations, there's an organization that frankly I think is interesting. It's not TML, but it's the, let me make sure I get it right, the Texas City Management Association, the TCMA. They also have training and content on ethics. When I look at those documents that they offer, they supersede the kind of things that are in here. In fact, there are some things in here, like I said before, that are problematic and certainly redundant. And again, I don't know why we would do that. What I think happens, if you've ever gone to court or been in a lawsuit, your attorney will always say never talk more than you have to. I think in this case, it's clear that we all want ethical behavior. I think this TML guidance, the state legislation, and I think other training materials available by the state provide all the guidance we need for this. Do we need to have an ethics statement? Frankly, I don't think we do. I think we have it already. I think it's in front of us at TML. I think it's part of state law. And I think it's available to anybody, they see impropriety or they believe there's impropriety, there's a venue for reporting it.
I don't disagree with anything you said, Steve, and I appreciate that. 2 points. One, I didn't write this. This was written by our lawyer, okay, the town lawyer. 2, if other cities thought the same thing, they wouldn't have any ethics clauses in their thing. So I make a motion to vote on the ordinance.
I have a motion by Councilmember Mayor. Do I have a second? Motion carried, dies for lack of second. Do I have a motion to deny?
I'll make a motion to deny.
I have a motion by the Deputy Mayor Pro Tem to deny, and do I have a second? Do I have a second?
Second.
So I have a second by Councilmember Johnson. All in favor to deny, Councilmember Johnson?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Mayor, aye. 4.
Mayor, should I ask you something?
Yes.
I just want to address, talking about ethics, about the staff giving out maybe a 3rd acre map. First of all, we don't have the capabilities of drafting maps. The other thing is when someone approaches us, developer or anyone else, the only thing we can give out is what we have that has been passed by the council, whether it's a master plan map or zoning map. The only thing I can think of was maybe it was the ordinance, because 3rd acre is a use in town center, but we have not given out any all 3rd acre maps.
Thank you. Motion carries 4-1. Next item is discussion of future agenda items. Donna, I think you already have one request for future agenda item for the council to approve on the budget amendment or approve the installation of something on the peak side. Is there anything else, council? I'm hearing them. If you have any other future, please give them to Donna. Time being 8:25, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I have a motion by the Mayor Pro Tem. I have a second. Councilmember Andrews, all in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much.